Hello and welcome. Today is May 17, 2025. We will be reviewing some commentary from two different attorneys, Mark Bederow and Ian Runkle, and this is pertaining to the ambush that occurred in the Massachusetts versus Karen Reed case within the last week, and then we will review Judge Beverly Cannone's decision about that ambush. Thank you for being here. And as a heads up, there are several interruptions in the Ian Runkle video from his commenters, from his fans. So I apologize ahead of time, but his commentary is important here.
All right, so Mr. Lessie, I'll hear you. I'll hear you, Mr.
All right, we're going to take this down to 1 speed.
Lessie.
Thank you, Your Honor. The topic I would like to raise with Your Honor is the timing and nature and significance of the information that the defense has received from the firm Aperture. And Your Honor may recall there are two individuals on the witness list that we understand are to testify in this matter. First is Dr. Judson Welter, and the second is Shannon Burgess.
And are they testifying in reverse order, though, than what you said?
My understanding is, Your Honor, yes.
Okay.
My understanding, Mr. Brennan has the best information, is that it's proposed that Mr. Burgess testifies first and Dr. Welcher.
I have not heard about his sidebar
So-
merch.
The Commonwealth has established in reports right up until May, not established, they had stated in the reports of Aperture, particularly the slide presentation of.
I don't know if you guys noticed that she had moved the mic away from her face. I don't know if she's learning about all the sighs, all the mocking she's received online because of all her sighing, her vocal communications of her frustrations and her boredom with this defense team. Interesting. She's been doing that a bit more during this retrial. And I also want to notate the part where she interrupts Robert Alessi to ask him which order the two prosecution witnesses will be testifying. And I just felt like it wasn't necessary for her to interrupt him about that. She could have easily asked Hank Brennan about the order.
Dr. Welcher,
Is that somebody who thinks I'm wearing a wig?
trigger called 1162-2 that they have associated in the report of Dr. Welcher with a specific time. And that specific time that they have associated with that trigger is 12/31/38 to 12/31/43.
So important to notate that, to put a pin in that in your mind, that 12/31/38 and 12/31/43 were the original triggers, the times that the prosecution alleges for the triggers from the infotainment center, the infotainment system. And the defense team sent that report to ARCA, and ARCA was conducting testing with that information, that 12/31 time slot. So keep that in mind.
And we have been assuming that information, and this is from best memory, but I believe it's slide 137 or so, where the statement is in the slide. And so we have proceeded with our defense. We have proceeded with the work that has been assigned to ARCA based upon that time period. On May 8th, not too long ago, Your Honor, we received an amended report of Shannon Burgess that pushes that time period. I'm just going to get
So May 8th is a week ago. What day was it this trial started? What day was it that this started? Vaughn, if you want to send something, first email me at runkleofthebailey@gmail.com and let me know what you'd be sending, because I gotta have more management over it.
So, although it was dated May 8th, we received it actually on May 11th.
And guys, if you didn't notice, Karen Reed was whispering something to Robert Alessi in that moment, and he clarified to the court that they received it on May 11th.
So they got it May 11th, which is Sunday of this week. So they've had it for 4 days. Yeah, April 1st was jury selection. That took like a few weeks, so somewhere in the 20th range. Yeah.
And in that report, Mr. Burgess states that he is making an amendment, and he is now stating that that infotainment trigger of 11/62/2 is further back in time, and it is past 12/31/43.
Do you have the time?
I'm going to get the exact time, Your Honor. It is 12/32/16.
You guys see that? It was Karen Reed that gave Robert Alessi that time. And again, I said it in my last video, I am so impressed by how in charge she is of her own defense. She's got some of the best attorneys the US can offer, and she is still actively involved in her own defense. She's not leaving anything up to fate. I have a lot of respect for that woman. But a huge important point here, guys, to notate is that the original report pertaining to the infotainment system had a time slot for a particular trigger, and that time slot was for 12/31/43, in that range, 12/31/43, or a few seconds prior, or a few fractions of a second prior. And the new report, the amended report that the defense received on May 11th, just 6 days ago, the new report contains the time slot of 12/31/16. So it changed, the prosecution changed the time from 12/31/43, right? That's 12:31 minutes and 43 seconds to 12:32 minutes and 16 seconds, right? And it might not seem like a huge difference to anyone who doesn't understand forensics, but this is forensics, and every second counts, every minute counts. Guys, whatever happened to John O'Keefe happened within a half hour. Like, it happened quickly upon his arrival at 34 Fairview, right? So minutes and seconds do matter, right? Karen Reed was with John O'Keefe 1 minute, and the next minute she could not get a hold of him. And then she could not get a hold of him for the rest of the night, and he had passed away. Minutes matter here. So the prosecution's original report stated the time, 12:31. The new report states the time at 12:32. And ARCA received the original report with the time 12:31. So now ARCA has to do new testing with the new time of 12:32. You guys get it? Like, if the prosecution wants to change their evidence, then the defense should have a right to object to it, especially when the defense is funding this ARCA, this new ARCA report, right? On behalf of Karen Reed. The original testing that ARCA conducted was funded by the FBI. This new testing is coming out of Karen Reed's defense fund. Okay, that federal investigation with ARCA, that has concluded, and surely the charges are pending. We don't know what the FBI, right? We don't even know really if that federal investigation has concluded. It could be ongoing, but according to ARCA, their role in that investigation, in that federal investigation, is over. So all the work they are doing for Karen Reed right now, since that federal investigation, is coming out of Karen Reed's defense fund. Okay? So and ARCA has already been limited by Judge Bev. Judge Bev has already been rushing these new developments from ARCA. Okay, guys? So the defense here is trying to object to this amendment because how dare the prosecution, right? If they're going to do new testing, then they should motion the court for a continuance at bare minimum, right? Or they should motion to dismiss and then rebuild their case and try again, right? This stage of the game, and just so you know, guys, the prosecution is supposed to conclude their case next week, and then it's the defense's turn to bring on the defense, to bring on the multiple reasons for reasonable doubt. So the prosecution's case in the retrial is almost over, and they amended that report, and now it's changed by a minute. And again, guys, minutes matter here because John O'Keefe suffered terrible injuries moments after he arrived at 34 Fairview. Moments, okay, not hours. It would have had to be within minutes.
And Your Honor may recall.
Remember, guys, John O'Keefe's phone, his cell phone, stopped reporting any activity at 12:32 a.m. Remember that, guys. Minutes matter here.
That the seconds, literally seconds, matter in the analysis of many factors. I won't go into them other than to say I went through and developed testimony with regard to the cross-examination of Mr. Whiffen. He had a timeline. He talked about much human volitional conduct. Suffice it to say that that information is literally.
All right, let's talk about this because this isn't just a situation where they're bringing in new evidence. They're bringing in new evidence midway through the trial. And not just midway through the trial, but midway through the trial and after the defense has already committed themselves to to their theory, right? And the thing is that the jury has already been seeing these different details, and the defense has been asking questions specifically to poke holes in the Commonwealth theory. And so what the Commonwealth appears to be doing is to be saying, oh, well, the defense has been poking holes in our theory. We need to amend our theory in order to, in order to basically rule that out. And that is messed up. This is insanely prejudicial to the defense to say that the Commonwealth gets to change their theory midway through and have their experts redo things and decide, and their justification for it is going to be absolutely super thin. This is ridiculous levels of ambush.
By seconds determinative in some ways of various analyses. So we basically commissioned, if you will, ARCA to be looking at matters based upon the infotainment trigger 1162.2 of 12/31/38 to 12/31/43. As of May 11th, we received information that has changed that.
So did you guys listen to what Robert Alessi just said, that ARCA has that information. ARCA has that time slot. ARCA was conducting testing pertaining to 12/31, not 12/32, right? So again, and they commissioned ARCA, the defense team commissioned ARCA for this new testing, right? And this is toward the end of the prosecution's case, right? Ian Runkle keeps saying the middle of the trial. It's actually toward the end of the prosecution's case. They're about done with their witness list. They have a few more to go. Okay, guys? So it is ambush. It's changed by a minute. It's changed by a minute. But again, when it comes to forensic science, every minute counts. When it comes to real metadata, every minute, every second counts. And again, John O'Keefe's cell phone stopped reporting activity at 12:32 a.m. Okay, guys? It stopped reporting activity at 12:32 a.m., right? And it's as if the prosecution has now matched that time slot with the time that John O'Keefe's cell phone stopped reporting activity. You guys get it? You guys get it? Like, okay, continuing.
Now, Your Honor, that is a Rule 14 violation, among other.
I feel like we could have a drinking game for Rule 14 violation in this trial. Ooh. So yeah, they're like, why did they not disclose this? Why did they not do this until well after the deadlines? They have deadlines for reciprocal disclosure or discovery, so that they can't do this midway through the trial. Oof.
Issues, but I wanted to start there. It's a Rule 14 violation. It's obviously, as I stated, an amendment of a report of a significant matter. And also, with regard to the defense's ability to provide a defense, we have to be able to evaluate that information in terms of our entire defense. And it's just not limited to ARCA. It's our entire defense.
And this is the thing. They called evidence. They elicited evidence on cross-examination that was key to it. By the way, if you see me flinching, I attached a TENS unit because my back is really killing me. But if you see me sort of doing weird flinches, that's what that's about, because I've got it turned up way too high. Yeah.
The other data point I want to get to, so the effect it's had, we still haven't even been able to evaluate entirely that. And I believe, Your Honor, based upon the information that I have, that this may have been a calculated matter by the Commonwealth, but even assuming it's not calculated, the effect.
I mean, it's super, super calculated, right? Obviously.
Absolutely 1000% calculated.
They're doing, like, they're sandbagging the defense. They're 100% sandbagging the defense. It's
is pronounced. So what I want to do, Your Honor, is to look at what the reason Mr. Burgess has given, which leads me to be very concerned about a calculation and a strategy calculation here. Mr. Burgess states in his own words that the reason why he is changed, that time is being changed, is to, quote, align the trigger with Mr. Whiffin's analysis. And
the thing is they're going to claim that it's Mr. Whiffin's analysis from his report, but I'm sure that it's Mr. Whiffin's analysis from his cross-examination.
Whiffin's
agreed with Runkle, and really good, perceptive of Ian Runkle for saying that. And I agree. It's so like this prosecution to do that, to look at how terrible Ian Whiffin did. Ian, they both have the same name. Ian Whiffin, right? The Celebrite guy, the ArtX guy, the guy who doesn't use hash verified metadata, that so-called expert, Ian Whitten's testimony, you know, the defense absolutely poked holes through it, right? It's entirely inappropriate, entirely out of bounds for the prosecution to be like, oh snap, let's do this, let's fix this, let's patch up those holes. They don't get to do that. No prosecution anywhere in this country gets to do that. You don't get to change your case, even if it's by a minute. You don't get to change your evidence, even by a minute, toward the end of your trial. You don't get to do that. You either ask for a motion to dismiss and you build up your case again, or you ask for a continuance.
Analysis is based upon the extraction data from Mr. O'Keefe's phone. And I believe it's undisputed that the extraction from Mr. O'Keefe's phone occurred years ago. The data from that has been...
It was available at the first trial.
Extant. It's been available years ago. So to me, Your Honor, that basis can't be a proper basis at particularly this stage where we are approaching the end of the trial, just literally days before the testimony of Aperture. And we are in a very, very almost impossible, challenging situation.
Absolutely, guys. It's absolutely impossible and challenging because, again, if ARCA is going to come in and testify on behalf of the defense with their new testing, which, again, ARCA relied on the prosecution's information. ARCA relied on that initial 12/31 time slot. So ARCA is going to come in and testify when the defense is already being rushed by Judge Bev, and the ARCA's gonna testify, and they're gonna be like, we didn't have time to redo our testing because the prosecution changed their time slot. Right? Like that's what Karen Reed is faced with right now. You know, it's entirely a wrench being thrown in her own defense by this prosecution, that ARCA would have to redo their testing based on the new time slot. But what it really is, guys, is that these so-called experts on the prosecution side are totally full of shit. Totally full of shit. Where was this information during the first trial? Right? They're changing it now, and they're conveniently changing it now after Ian Whitten's testimony, which again was full of holes. So it's like either ARCA runs out of time to conduct new testing for the new time slot of 12:32 a.m. and then their testimony is chaotic because they didn't have all the information they needed, or ARCA doesn't get to testify because ARCA doesn't have the real information. ARCA doesn't have the updated information. Like, it's like either way, Karen Reed is screwed here because of this crooked, terribly corrupt prosecution.
So, Your Honor,
And the thing is they can't backtrack their theory in front of the jury. If the defense has been calling evidence and eliciting evidence specifically toward, like they've been eliciting evidence from Commonwealth witnesses specifically towards undermining the theory as they had it. And so if the Commonwealth is allowed to change their theory, it makes the defense look like they were chasing some sort of shadow or bullshitting them. And this is unreal. Like, it's unbelievable that they're getting away with this.
there are obviously, Your Honor knows the situation here. Our first request is that the May 8th report that we received on May 11th be not allowed, that it be not considered at all. As Your Honor knows, I don't like to use hyperbolic words, but the word has been used for us, against us, ambush, ambush, ambush.
1000%. 1000%. And Robert Alessi is correct. When he argues, he doesn't try to denounce the prosecution, even though the prosecution is absolutely deserving of it, right? Robert Alessi is a gentleman. He's a real professional. I believe his going rate is almost $2,000 an hour in New York. Okay, he's a high class attorney here, highly experienced and highly educated, and he comes with grace, you know. And if you want an attorney, you want an attorney with grace, and an attorney who's going to communicate to other human beings in an effective manner. And that is Robert Alessi. So when Robert Alessi says this prosecution is ambushing the defense, Robert Alessi is not lying. He's not using hyperbole, right? He's not exaggerating. He's not embellishing. This is legit ambush.
If there's ever an example of an ambush, this is it. And so you're right.
And this is a much better example of an ambush because it's happening mid-trial. Mid-trial.
Honor, our request is that Your Honor find a Rule 14 violation, that Your Honor have the remedy be that the violation remedy be that this is not allowed, and that the Commonwealth proceed with its the information of Aperture that has been extant before the May 8th date of the report. Thank you.
So that's the conclusion of what the defense was asking. They were asking for Judge Bev to consider this a Rule 14 violation, right? They were asking Judge Bev to, as a violation, to not permit the report at all, right? To completely deny it because it's a violation. You see, the prosecution, when the prosecution accuses the defense of Rule 14 violations, the prosecution asks for sanctions. You see, totally different approach here coming from the defense. The defense isn't asking for sanctions. They are asking for Judge Bev to just deny the new report. Extremely reasonable to me, guys. All right, let's listen to this segment. We'll listen to a few minutes, and then we will listen to Judge Bev's decision pertaining to the report.
Alessi is going to start direct examining our witnesses, and it's going to be like palpable. You're going to see such a vast difference in terms of what he's going to be able to do with Wolf and Rensselaer is going to be spectacular. You know,
and not only is Brennan, I mean, look, he was a prosecutor 100 years ago, obviously long past, but not only is he a defense attorney, but he's a certain type of defense attorney, which is not going to help him. Okay, given the fact that he dealt with like organized crime and all that stuff, and again, there's no shame in that, but he's the kind of guy who is used to cross-examining cops. Okay, and there's a tone. You know this. I know this. I'll do this. You can be more aggressive with cops. You don't have to be emotional. You don't have to be charismatic. It's kind of a different game than sympathetic people, or sometimes you just have to know when to dial it down. You saw the way he handled the ARCA people. It was embarrassing. It was silly. You know, he just doesn't have the charisma. He doesn't seem to be able to change tone and kind of modulate and relate to people. He's used to just all in, super aggressive, as if everyone's a corrupt FBI agent going after, you know, innocent Whitey Bulger, which is not the case. That's not what this case is, right?
And I think Mark Bederow, previous to this segment, stated that he doesn't really care that Hank Brennan represented the Irish mob. Hank Brennan represented Whitey Bulger as a defense attorney. And For Mark Bederow, that doesn't concern him. He doesn't care. You know, for Mark Bederow, he's like, defense attorneys represent all kinds of people, you know, good or bad. I get Mark Bederow's argument, but for me and the people the people I'm observing, the people I'm paying attention to, the online community, there is great suspicion that Hank Brennan is involved in organized crime. So it is a big deal. You know, of course, can we prove it? Can anyone prove organized crime, real organized crime? You know, sometimes cases surface and they're brought to the light, and then people are like, whoa, this was going on all the whole time. This organized system was going on the whole time. Yeah, it still goes on, guys. There's organized crime going on all the damn time. And who knows who is paying off these politicians in Massachusetts to not do a damn thing about the Karen Reed case, or the Sandra Birchmore case, or the Enrique Delgado case, or the Justin Rue case. Who knows who's paying off all these politicians? Who knows who's paying off the DA's office in Norfolk County? You know, who knows who's really paying Michael Morrissey?
So screaming at Dr. Wolf about deleting text messages isn't going to get it done. Okay,
Not even in front of a jury.
Oh, not even in front of a jury. Screaming at Dr. Russell, who has, you know, really impressive credentials. That she's kind of a, you know, quirky, charismatic, you know, non-traditional doctor, right? She's not, right. but she's charismatic in her own way and really credentialed, and has her opinions, and they're really, you know, well-founded with her experience and education. Like, coming after her is not the way. And this guy just has no modulation, no charisma, and he's the prosecutor, and you can't do that. You have to wear the white hat.
Right.
And he's not the white hat guy. He's the guy,
That guy.
You saw at the end of the day today, who is fully comfortable with sandbagging the defense mid-trial.
Gaslighting the judge.
This is the most gaslighting. I've told you this before. He is a master gaslighter. He stood up today defending his position when the jury left, talking about the defense discovery violations as he's moving to change the most material evidence in the middle of trial, after the defense has cross-examined critical witnesses based on the so-called faulty data he gave them.
It's insane. And
is a dirtbag, okay?
Yeah.
He is an embarrassment to the profession of prosecutor, and he makes Michael Morrissey deserve everything he gets, and Brennan deserves everything he gets, given the outcome.
1000%. I keep saying it, guys. You reap what you sow. If you're going to be this nasty as a human being, you know, and all of us have limited time here. All of us have limited time here. Every single one of us. It's amazing how some people behave as if they're going to live forever, or they're going to get special treatment, like they're not going to have to endure the consequences of their actions. And that's Hank Brennan and Judge Bev and Michael Morrissey and the MSP and the Canton PD and the McCabe's and the Alberts and Brian Higgins. All of those fools think that consequences aren't going to get to them. You know, otherwise they would just tell the truth. Otherwise they would just stop this circus and tell the truth. And I've also argued about how abusive Hank Brennan is. Absolutely, Mark Bederow. Hank Brennan, the way he was with Dr. Marie Russell, she did not deserve that. The way he was with Dr. Daniel Wolf, he did not deserve that. You know, highly credentialed witnesses, people who know what they're actually talking about. And Hank Brennan is just there slapping them. He's just abusing them with his words. You know, just so unnecessary. He's so extra, so beyond extra.
Outcome of this case. I mean, he is just making a mockery of what a fair trial is. And for him to get up and say that, oh, I just got this report, it's fine, I'm allowed to do this, it's not my fault, it's not a discovery violation, so I'm allowed to do this mid-trial. No, you're not, buddy. No,
you're not.
But Mark, remember, clocks are different.
Clocks are different. And, you know, prosecutors aren't allowed to, changing your theory from first trial to the second trial is an issue. And now you've got first trial, it started at 12:45 is when she was struck. 12:45. Now we're in trial 2. I believe the time changed in trial 1. Now we're in trial 2 and it's changing again and now again. And when does the judge say, you know what? You guys have no idea when and how this man died. This is a mockery.
So
Really good point. Really good point from the defense diaries. Like both of them are great. I will leave the link in the description below for you guys, as well as the Ian Runkle live stream. Really great point that during the first trial, Trooper Joe Paul said that the incident took place at 12:45 a.m., right? And Nicholas Guarino said that Karen Reed connected to John O'Keefe's Wi-Fi, her cell phone connected to John O'Keefe's Wi-Fi at 12:36 a.m., right? So somebody else hit John O'Keefe at 12:45 a.m. because Karen Reed was already at John's house at 12:36 a.m., right? So that timeline for the first trial was out the window. Didn't make a damn sense. And it was contradicted by the MSP themselves, between Trooper Nicholas Guarino and Trooper Joe Paul. The terrible excuse for an accident reconstructionist. Remember? And now in this retrial, the time has changed from 12:31 to 12:32. And funny enough, John O'Keefe's cell phone stopped reporting activity at 12:32, right? So guys, if we are paying attention to the metadata here, to the digital time here, that cannot be disputed between John O'Keefe's ring camera footage between John O'Keefe's Wi-Fi. You can't fuck with that time, right? And the alleged time that he was struck, according to the prosecution, like 12:45 a.m. But she's at John's house at 12:36 a.m. And John's cell phone stopped moving at 12:32 a.m. Like the prosecution's timeline in the first trial did not even match with any of the digital forensic data. Okay? And now it's trying to match it, only they half-assed it. They were like, let's make it 12:31. Let's make it 12:31. Oh, no, let's make it 12:32. Yeah, 12:32 makes more sense. And they are doing that on purpose. They could have left it at 12:31. They are doing this on purpose because of ARCA, because they don't want ARCA to be prepared when ARCA defends Karen Reed. And they also want to raise Karen Reed's bill for ARCA, by sort of forcing them to conduct more testing. And I'm not sure they're going to be able to conduct more testing with the new 12:32 a.m. time slot.
At the first trial, it was 12:45 because of Jen McCabe, because that's what Jen McCabe said. Then they hire these experts who tell you it's 12:31, and apparently until May 11th, which was 4 days.
And that's Trooper Joe Paul who said 12:45 a.m. He was the so-called accident reconstructionist. He said he determined it was 12:45 a.m. But it was later discovered that it was Jennifer McCabe it's like Jennifer McCabe was orchestrating so much of these lies. This is spiderweb. It's a spiderweb of lies. And Jennifer McCabe is the spider.
Days ago, that was their theory. It's now like 12:32. You've heard that. I mean, they even admitted, well, I had to synchronize it with Whiffen after he testified. I mean, what the hell are we doing here? They're on their third theory of the timeline. The goalposts keep moving depending on where the evidence goes and what takes them. And you have a judge.
Great point by Mark. Like, again, why aren't they allowing the science to speak for itself? Why is the prosecution choosing to behave like criminals here. If they really wanted to solve this case, they would allow the science to speak for itself. Instead, they act first and then they correct themselves later. You know, they want to win first, right? They want to beat the defense to the finish line first, and they'll just correct whatever errors they make along the way. Like it's such a shit show.
Who basically has no grave concerns, right?
No,
But
not even a regular concern.
zero.
A
But
concern. Well, like I'd be at this point, I'd be happy with just a concern.
she would have these defense attorneys disbarred or doing all kinds of terrible things and doesn't have a goddamn concern that the prosecution has moved the goalpost depending on whatever chameleon shape, you know, the evidence takes on any given day, given their faulty case, to allow them to do whatever they want to do. And for these people mid-trial with a straight face to say, we're giving you notice after Whiffen has testified, after you opened on this, after you prepared for months on this theory, this is insanity that this judge would not literally look at them in the face and say, absolutely not. On top of that, to say, what the hell are you doing? What are you
say
doing?
whatever you want to just change the evidence however you want to convict someone, not in my courtroom.
I will tell you this. They did make a record today. It needs to be stronger. It needs to be,
Yep.
they need to tell the judge that if you do this, we're going to move for an immediate mistrial.
Yep.
And we're going to make a record. We're going to make a public record. And here's what it's going to be. And also we're going to make a record on the fact that this mistrial is going to be caused by the misconduct of the prosecution. There's no manifest necessity. There isn't going to be another trial. And you need to judge, put on your judge pants and say, I'm not going to allow this. Okay. He doesn't want to have grave concerns and all that and accuse Brennan of any kind of misconduct. That's fine. But for her to even entertain the possibility after they cross-examine the prosecution expert with specific theories, thoughts, and strategies on the timeline and emphasize that for the jury. And then this guy submits a report saying, well, I have to sync it to Whiffen, so I'm going to move it 30 seconds mid-trial and say that's okay. And Brennan say that's not a discovery violation. There's nothing.
We didn't change anything. We didn't
This
change
guy-
anything.
Yes, we did not listen to Hank Brennan's response to Robert Alessi, but Hank Brennan did say that it did not change when it actually changed. Like 1231 is not 1232, and 1232 is not 1231. It's a change.
This guy is just disgraceful to do this with a straight face because he is a defense attorney. Don't forget that. He's not in the DA's office. He's just taking their $250,000 from the taxpayers. But when this is over, he's supposed to go back to being a defense attorney and look at the arguments that he's making. Okay. The fact that he even suggests that this is fair tells you this guy has no moral compass at all. Okay. This is a freaking game to him. Okay.
Right.
It's not a fair trial. This is about a gain and a win, and it's disgraceful.
And it's a money grab, like flat out. It's a money grab. It's a
It sure is, but I want to read Joe Flipperhead's comment on their live stream, and he wrote, rookie move not getting a homicide from the ME. And it was a text message that Michael Proctor had received. Rookie move not getting a homicide from the ME. This is how the MSP joke. This is how they joke around. Like, you couldn't get the medical examiner to give you a homicide. Psst, you know, newbie. Like, this is John O'Keefe's life, you know, and this is Karen Reed's fate on the line, her freedom on the line. Just so disgusting. But good job for Joe Flipperhead for pointing it out. All right, guys, we're going to watch a few minutes of this before I conclude.
All right, Mr. Alessi, I'll hear you. You are unmuted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yesterday, Your Honor discussed with the parties, and parties were heard with regard to the issues we have raised with regard to the timing of the May 8th report from Mr. Burgess that the defense received on May 11th. And what I wanted to do, Your Honor, is briefly provide the information Your Honor asked for yesterday, which was how much time we might need under various circumstances. And so I wanted to take a few moments to put that in context. It will only take me a brief amount of time to do so. So, Your Honor, there is a timing issue, but there's most importantly a substantive issue. I will not, of course, go into the detail of yesterday, but the timing really is informed by the substantive issue. And so with regard to the matter, we went back and we looked at more deeply the effect of this timing and this movement of the what has been referred to as clock drift in Mr. Burgess's report that we got on May 11th. I spoke of the significance yesterday, and here's what I would like to add as is relevant to the time we're going to need. I again urge the court to reject it substantively, because what we did was we went and we looked at matters such as the cross-examination of a key witness in this case, Jennifer McCabe. She testified with regard to observing a vehicle at 12:45 a.m. We, and that's a significant point. I know I don't need to elucidate for Your Honor. All of this is going in significant part, if not total part, to what has been as alleged a collision here, which we vigorously contest. It just no collision ever occurred. But the timing of it, the timing of what's alleged by the Commonwealth is very important. The seconds are important. Literally 1 second can turn not only the Commonwealth's theory completely around in circles and debunk it, but also the jury's analysis of it. And this is the point I wanted to elucidate today, is that the jurors have been provided information, and the defense has aimed its defense on this claim based upon, in large part, timing. So now what we have is on May 11th, Mr. Burgess changing the time. So what does it affect? Not only witnesses like Jennifer McCabe, who we strategized with regard to, but also my decision to not even cross Trooper Garino, because Trooper Garino had testimony with regard to when Ms. Reed connected with the Wi-Fi at One Meadows, and there's a certain time associated with that. We have Mr. Whiffen, who went through, the Commonwealth went through a timeline, and we believe they went through a timeline.
If you guys don't know, this is Caleb Schillinger sitting behind Karen Reed's family. Okay, this is Caleb Schillinger right next to Robert Alessi. I like, why can't the court find a different spot for him? Why can't Caleb sit with the family, with John O'Keefe's family, or with the McCabe's? Why can't Caleb, right? Like, why can't he sit somewhere else, like with the reporters? Why does he have to be right behind Karen Reed's family? I would not want a single member of the prosecution sitting next to my family during trial if it were me, if I were Karen Reed.
Right, for the theory that they had. And I cross-examined Mr. Whiffen extensively with regard to that timeline. There were several defense strategies and effectuations of strategies based upon that timing. So with regard to the substance, Your Honor, and there's more, but I think that's a fair representation. It innervates our entire defense. The question now of Your Honor of how much time it will take the defense to react to Mr. Burgess. I wanted to say it's not only a reaction, but it's a substantive defense analysis, and 3/4 of the effectuation of that has already occurred through our presentation in terms of cross-examination. So we would have to, and we're still evaluating that, revisit all of that. And secondly, we would have to put that into the calculation of all of our witnesses that we've already prepared that are based upon that timeline. So it is a very significant point. And to the extent that the Commonwealth tries to argue, well, you know, we never really committed that much to a certain time period. I again urge the court to look at the report of Dr. Judson Welcher, where he has 1162-2 with a specific range, 38 to 43. And even in their range, it's a very
He kind of slurred his words there, but it's 12:31:38, 12:31:43, 12:31 minutes, and 12:31 minutes and 43 seconds. It was a range, between a few seconds.
small time, which further supports how each second matters in this regard. Now to the answer to the question Your Honor asked yesterday. Again, I urge that it just be rejected and we keep this trial moving in its current pace. To the extent that that does not occur, and again, we urge that it be rejected, the report, because it's a Rule 14 violation, there is no remedy for the defense. However, to the extent, and given Your Honor nonetheless asked me for an answer in time, we would need 4 days to be able to address it. We will not ever be able to recover strategically or substantively from it, given all that's been presented to the jury. And it will be very difficult to figure out how we're going to go present a defense after we've already presented to the jury our defense and our cross-examination. It's not really structurally possible to simply take 4 days and address Mr. Burgess, because we can't go back to all the witnesses I just mentioned and others and start crossing them and eliciting testimony with this new time period in mind. But I wanted to answer the question, Your Honor, respectfully.
And Caleb Schillinger knows better. As a prosecutor, he was also representing the Superior Court when the defense tried to have the case dismissed. Caleb Schillinger is clearly qualified, right, with his high position, or is he just a robot that just does whatever the DA's office tells him to, whatever the politicians controlling the DA's office tell him to, or whatever the mafia, the organized crime network tells him to? Like, how can you sit there, a foot away from Robert Alessi, a foot away from this defense and Karen Reed's family, and listen to this bullshit and still be like, yep, we're pushing through with our case as the prosecution. Yep, this is our case and we're gonna win.
It would be 4 days for us to even go from where we are now and then try to alter not only witnesses such as Arca, but DeSogra and Gaffney and other types of witnesses that we have in that regard. So, Your Honor, respectfully, that is my response.
All right. Does the Commonwealth want to be heard?
Yeah.
Okay.
And guys, for Judge Bev to ignore the situation, the difficult situation that the defense is in, that Karen Reed is in, because of this new timeline, this new time slot, for her to ignore it, for her to not even consider all of these arguments. Like, who the hell is she? Why is Judge Bev a Superior Court judge?
Respectfully, Your Honor, the defense is very confused. They attempt to confuse the issue. They attempt to confuse Your Honor about what the impact will be. This has never been a change. The government is not changing their timeline. The Commonwealth is not changing any information. The Commonwealth is not offering anything that affects in any way the testimony of witnesses.
Again, Caleb Schillinger, like, listen to Hank Brennan. Like, how can you sleep at night, Caleb? Like, Hank Brennan, just his MO, gaslight. What happened didn't really happen. What you heard isn't what you actually heard. What you saw isn't what you actually saw. and 1231 is basically 1232. Nothing's changed.
It's notable in the argument there is no relationship to the facts of the actual report that was provided. The Commonwealth has always provided the data, which they have, and they hadn't a chance to analyze. And the interpretation of the data has been different between the parties. We have been clear from the beginning at the time in which the infotainment system shows that there was a collision. We've been clear. And the data has been clear. That has never changed. That data in the Telestream system is based on a clock in the Lexus, which both sides know full well is different than a clock in an iPhone. You can see all the productions of Dr. Welcher's PowerPoint presentation where it shows that time, 12:31:43, has never changed. Also, it has been clear that both sides appreciate that there is a variance between the clock in the Lexus, which leads to that system information, and a clock in an iPhone. In fact, the defense was so aware of it, they hired an expert, Mr. DeSorga, who gave his opinions about that variance. We have never suggested there was not a variance in this case. In fact, we have highlighted the variance. When their expert, Mr. DeSorga, provided a report, we believe that his analysis was wrong. And so we looked at the variance and the data that was available from the Telestream system and John O'Keefe's Ways data that was on his phone that was always available to all of the experts in both sides. And when Mr. Burgess looked at the—
And guys, listen to how Hank Brennan takes certain argumentative approaches from the defense and he applies it to the prosecution. Like it's been happening before the retrial and during the retrial where Hank Brennan will try to argue something and it will be in a similar way that the defense has argued. So it's like he's mirroring, okay? He's mirroring the defense, right? When the defense are clearly being victimized, Hank Brennan wants to pretend he's being victimized. And when the defense says, you guys had ARCA, you guys had access to ARCA this whole time. ARCA was available for the prosecution and the defense this whole time. The conclusions ARCA established were available to both sides the whole time. This is Hank Brennan using that argument, using that approach and applying it to this issue and saying the defense had John O'Keefe's Ways information this whole time. They could have used it. They had access to it just like we did. Again, the hypocrisy and the mirroring, it's so disgusting and it's disingenuous. It's so fucking disingenuous. Hank Brennan has no original bone in his body. He's not creative. All he does is regurgitate and repeat and follow directions from on high, the most corrupt directions we've seen in a case.
The variance at the time of a 3-point turn, about 7 minutes before the collision, he simply matched the Waze information on Mr. O'Keefe's phone to that of the information from the Telestream and saw that it was a 21 to 29 second variance. All that data was available to the defense because their expert made an improper conclusion is not our fault. This does not change the testimony of anybody. They point to Jen McCabe's text message where she said she thought she saw a motor vehicle out front that evening at 12:45. That is not consistent with the Commonwealth timeline, but that doesn't change. That favors the defense.
Total lie, guys. If you just refer to the beginning of this video, total lie. Right there. Hank Brennan, total fucking lie, right? Like, and he's telling on himself. How many times does this douchebag tell on himself, right? Jennifer McCabe said she saw the saw the vehicle at 12:45. that doesn't coincide with the prosecution's timeline. Yes, it did, Hank Brennan, during the first trial, thanks to your buddy, Trooper Joe Paul, 1245 hours.
It does not change anything to do with ARCA. ARCA has not, as far as I've seen in any reports, ever talked about the variance, just Mr. DeSorda. And so because this is inconvenient for the defense, and because it further focuses the variance that we already discussed and provided, isn't a reason to exclude it. It's not late discovery. It's not a rule.
Hank Brennan is highlighting the variance between like the 1231, 38 and 1231-43, like that variance. He's totally omitting the new time slot of 1232. Again, 1231 is not 1232. But Hank Brennan wants to pretend that it's just a slight variance, and it's just we've just adjusted the window ever so slightly. Not a big deal. It's absolutely a big deal when you are talking mathematically, scientifically.
14 violation. It is further analysis of information that was already provided, opinions that were already provided.
You know, guys, my advice to you, don't be anything like Hank Brennan and don't be anything like Caleb Schillinger. Don't be people who just want the money, who just want a paycheck, who only care about money, that you will completely dishonor your fellow man and completely unnecessarily throw your fellow man under a bus and take all their friends and family members with them, right? Because Hank Brennan isn't just victimizing Karen Reed, he's also victimizing the attorneys in the defense team, Karen Reed's family, the attorneys' families, the people looking at this case, deeply offended by this case. Okay, it's a chain reaction. Okay, this is an extremely human experience here. And a majority of human beings observing this case are distraught. They are worried and they are sickened by the corruption, the in-your-face corruption. Okay? So I'm saying, guys, don't just choose money. Don't just choose money. Don't choose wealth over doing the right thing. Don't be a Caleb Schillinger. Don't be a Hank Brennan.
And it is in response to their experts' mistake about that variance. There's nothing new here. Nothing has changed.
Go right ahead, Mr. Leslie. The only question I had for you yesterday, for you to respond to today, was the time, so I gave you more leeway. Go right ahead.
So, two items, Your Honor. As I alluded to yesterday, and it's been a point that Mr. Brennan just made. We believe strongly, Your Honor, that at a minimum there needs to be a voir dire of Mr. Burgess. And we believe strongly there needs to be a voir dire because we have a serious concern that the sequestration order has been violated. He has changed a very key aspect of this matter after the testimony of Mr. Whiffen, after Mr. Whiffen presenting a timeline. In his report, Mr. Burgess, his new purported report of May 8th, he references to align it with Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone. That is the essence of Mr. Whiffen's report, is anchoring in his timeline. We did a whole timeline on Mr. O'Keefe's report. And conveniently, the proposed alteration by Mr. Burgess in his report of this clock drift now makes it very, very close to fitting within Mr. Whiffen's timeline and the theory of the prosecution. At a minimum, we need a voir dire to ask Mr. Burgess, why did he do what he did? Another reason for the voir dire. Mr. Brennan yesterday said, we were surprised to get the report. That further makes great concern as to why Mr. Burgess did what he did. Lastly, Your Honor, with regard to Mr. Brennan's point, he made it yesterday and I corrected it. He said it again today, that supposedly our witness, Mr. DeSogra, made an error and that we're trying to correct an error of Mr. DeSogra. That is incorrect, Your Honor. Again, Mr. DeSogra was responding to Mr. Burgess's report. Mr. DeSogra's report is entirely saying, okay, Mr. Burgess says this, and therefore the defense says this. Now Mr. Burgess is changing what he is saying. So it is completely incorrect to say that Mr. DeSogra is trying to correct an error. That would require, again, Mr. DeSogra to change what he has done. Final point is.
Yeah, it's just Hank Brennan throwing bullshit in there in furtherance of Judge Bev making the wrong decision here. Furtherance and justification of Judge Bev making the wrong decision here. Hank Brennan puts all this bullshit on the record, but thankfully Robert Alessi puts all this truth on the record, and it cannot be denied.
Is this. There was also an issue, Your Honor, and this is extremely important with regard to burden shifting. There's not only the question of should this be allowed at all, there's not only the question of how much time the defense will need, but there's a third and important issue, and that's burden shifting. What Mr. Brennan proposed yesterday was a very irregular process where essentially the Commonwealth gets 3 bites at the apple for a problem that they caused. The problem we're talking about is Mr. Burgess changing a significant part of a timeline. Yes, there was a variance that he had, but he picked a range of the variance. He's now changing the variance. So what?
See, again, guys, this is what you have to do when you're dealing with like a gaslighter. You have to work harder, right? Because the gaslighter done changed the truth, done changed the narrative of the truth, right? And more than likely, they've thrown in other wrenches into the mixture. They've thrown in other alternative realities into the mixture. So Hank Brennan isn't just gaslighting. He's also installing alternate realities that never happened, right? So now Robert Alessi, now the defense team has to work double hard to not only defend the actual argument, but to defend the new bullshit arguments that Hank Brennan included in his response, if that makes sense. I've argued this in previous videos. Hank Brennan is making this defense team work like quadruple overtime because of his bullshit. Not only do they have to defend like their right to respond to this new report, not only do they have to defend their right to stop this report, to deny this report with the new time slot of 12:32, they also have to defend themselves with the additional bullshit that Hank Brennan put on the court record. You know, because guys, in court, if you are accused of something, you must refute it if it's not true. Otherwise, it's like you agree with it. And Hank Brennan knows it. So Robert Alessi, unfortunately, has to address the 12:32 time slot, the new time slot, and say, Judge, don't do it. Deny that report, please. And by the way, all this other bullshit Hank Brennan said, that's not true. And this is why it's not true. He's a psychopath. Hank Brennan is a psychopath. It's not just the money. He's just a psychopath.
The Commonwealth is proposing is that our witnesses go forward, the aperture gets to wait, they come on, and then the aperture gets to come on yet again.
I did not understand the Commonwealth asking me that. Are you asking me to do that, Mr.
I
Brennan?
appreciate the
I'm
clarification.
not sure what he's saying, so.
It sounds like DeBroja or whatever,
His name is DeSogra, yes.
DeSoda, you.
I also wanted to notate that brilliant for Robert Alessi to distinguish, to discern exactly what Hank Brennan was saying. Hank Brennan was trying to muddy the water, blurry the information, right? Blur it all up so that Judge Bev can't make a concise decision here. She's not going to make the right one anyway because she's corrupt. But still, again, on the court record, on the court record, it's Hank Brennan's bullshit, right? About this variance in time, right? The variance from the 12:31 38 to 12:31 43, right? That slight variance. And yet It's not the variance that is the subject here. It's the new time slot of 1232. And Robert Alessi distinguished that. He pointed that out for Judge Bev. Like, yes, Hank Brennan spewed some bullshit to you, but it's not the fucking truth. He's gaslighting. He's misrepresenting the facts here. He's doing it on purpose. He's saying, Your Honor, of course there's variance. There was always variance. Nothing's changed. But the argument isn't about the variance. It's about the new time slot of 1232.
You're suggesting that the Commonwealth suggested yesterday that he testifies first and then the aperture witnesses?
What I understood was going to happen is Mr. Brennan said yesterday that Dr. Welcher cannot come in until after.
No, I didn't understand that. I understood Dr. Welcher, Shannon Burgess, and then Dr. Welcher for everything that you folks received prior, January 31st, or whatever the date was. And then potentially for all the new ARCA information that came in May 7th, that portion, Dr. Welcher returning on rebuttal for. Not that they were holding back Dr. Welcher completely. Is that correct, Mr. Brennan?
That's the conversation I had. That conversation I wasn't part of.
Yeah, I think you misunderstood that, Mr. Alessi.
So just so I'm clear, what is it that the
Mr. Brennan, all right, this is separate, and I'd really like to give everybody a break here. What is it the Commonwealth is asking to do regarding that?
Regarding Mr. Burgess or Mr. Welcher?
Which Dr. Welcher.
Dr. Welcher should come in and testify to his PowerPoint, all of his opinions, which address all of the prior representations and opinions of ARCA, although we still don't have any raw information, but we're ready to move forward. Regarding any new opinions, which there is over a dozen new opinions that includes testing, video, experiments, Dr. Welcher should have enough time to review, conduct his own testing, turn it over, and then in rebuttal, address limited to the new issues raised by ARCA.
That's how I understood it, Mr. Alessi.
And that's how I did also, but the question is now with the Burgess changing of the clock drift, how many times is the Commonwealth proposing that Dr. Welcher gets to come in and talk about that? Is he just going to come in and talk about it?
So you talk with Mr. Brennan about that. All right, so I'm all set for this.
There are no changes. There is no changes in the timeline. He keeps trying to portray this as something has changed. Nothing has changed. It's the exact same. He's always said there's a variance. He's been looking into the variance for a long time, and now he has found a method to show the exact variance. It's not changing.
Look at Hank Brennan's hands here. Just look at them. He's like, look here, Judge. Look at this here. The variance is right here, Judge. Put your eyes on the variance, Judge. Not 1232, which wasn't in the report before. What was in the report before was 1231, 38, and 1231, 43, right? But what's in the new report, the amended report, is 1232. That's a whole new time slot. But Hank Brennan wants Judge Bev's eyes on the variance that was always there. But you know what was not always there? The 1232. That's a whole new number.
Changing. There's nothing in the reports that changes as far as the timeline. That's just an attempt to cause fear. There's nothing that has changed. We can look at the reports. It's all the same, always has been.
It has changed. 1231 changing to 1232 is a change, Hank Brennan. Like, who made him the prosecutor here? Like, what kind of math is he doing here? You know, what reality is he in that 1231 is the same as 1232?
Other than now, he's identified the mistake of their expert, and that led him to be able to identify the variance, which is helpful and new. And the suggestion that there's been some violation of an order. No good faith basis whatsoever.
Does the Commonwealth oppose a voir dire just on that one issue?
Yes, because it's suggesting that there's a good faith basis for it. Nothing has. Ian Whiffin's report was available to the defense and our experts months and months and months ago. The issue of variance has been an ongoing issue for months. There's nothing that triggered.
Such a shit show. Such a shit show for Judge Bev to even entertain it, for Judge Bev to even ask Hank Brennan if a voir dire is necessary. Again, she's letting this prosecution, she is letting Michael Morrissey run her courtroom.
Triggers a change in the testimony to adopt or adapt to it. Our timeline has been the same since when we turned it over at the beginning. They cannot point to one thing that has changed between Dr. Welcher, Ian Whiffen, Jessica Hyde, or Shannon Burgess. They are just saying things without a good faith basis. In the report,
This douchebag, this total douchebag.
show us where something has changed.
They did. Hank Brennan, they did. And that change is 1232. You guys changed it. The prosecution changed it. The prosecution's own so-called experts, who are also there for a paycheck and a paycheck only, their so-called experts changed it. The defense team didn't change it. Robert Alessi didn't change it. Robert Alessi isn't making up. New time slot, Hank Brennan. That is what's changed, and that is what has been argued. And Hank Brennan is conveniently, deliberately overlooking 1232.
I'm happy to any information.
No.
Thank you.
All right, so the court, please.
So before this, the council provided me with the information, Mr. Leslie, 2 reports that you had that were incorporated and what the Commonwealth had given me a few minutes for that. I appreciate that. Was pointed out to you. Argument on
Yeah,
it.
she's only being this nice, it's a show. It's disingenuous. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for giving it to me. Like, when does she ever act like this with the defense? She's acting like this with the defense because of her shitty decision she's about to make.
This yesterday and today, my findings for the record are that the defendant has not persuaded me of undue surprise or unfair prejudice by this information, and I don't find that there's delayed disclosure. Of course, all of this is ample game for cross-examination, certainly as to what Mr. Burgess knew, what he looked at, why he looked at it, when he looked at it, why he changed his report, in violation of the sequestration order is all for cross-examination, and I will give you a lot of leeway with that, Mr. Alessi, but I'm not having a voir dire on that. Mr. Alessi, I can tell you, obviously, you've got a great facility for cross-examining on the underlying information here. You've done fulsome cross-examinations. I have every confidence you can do it here again. But if after...
That's not the argument. The argument isn't, Your Honor, I don't know if I can do my job. Like, of course Robert Alessi can do his fucking job. It's Robert Alessi. He can do it better than anybody in the prosecution. He can do it way better than Judge Bev, right? That's not the argument, right? Judge Bev completely overlooked 1232, and it wasn't just because of Hank Brennan's gaslighting. It wasn't just because of Hank Brennan distracting her with the variance language. It's because Judge Bev is working for Michael Morrissey.
After the direct, you demonstrate that you need further time. I'll certainly hear you on that. And more importantly, perhaps, if you feel that the testimony of Jen McCabe and the others that you've mentioned is critical and that you need to recall them, I'll hear you on that as well. So regarding Dr. Welcher, as my understanding, the request yesterday was for, and it's been a request, I think, a few days. We've addressed it at sidebar, and I found that it wasn't the right time. Let's see how much Dr. Welcher could go through. I understand Dr. Welcher will testify in the Commonwealth's case in chief next week or so, Mr. Brennan.
Hopefully next week, if not,
All right.
the day after the holiday.
And that will be for all of the material that was provided to the defendant initially, right, by the Commonwealth's discovery deadline?
Correct.
And what you're asking for is that after ARCA testifies the new information, you're asking for rebuttal, right?
Yes, limited to the new information.
All right, so I would allow under these circumstances a limited rebuttal, and we can define the scope after we hear the testimony of ARCA. So those are my rulings. Your objections are noted. I'll see everybody on Monday.
Yep. Douchebags running that courtroom. All of them. So sickening. Extremely sickening, guys. And I feel bad for Karen. I feel bad for her attorneys, who again have to work extra hard than they normally would. Like, it's bad enough just trying to defend your client in a case they are not guilty of, right? When it's a normal prosecution, when it's a sane prosecution, right? It's bad enough. It's hard enough trying to defend your client when it's a regular, normal case, right? If you've watched enough cases like I have. But this is far out there. This is a whole other planet of corruption when it comes to criminal law. It is shit we haven't seen before. The audacity, the arrogance, the just the outright like fuckery. Like, they don't give a fuck. You know, they're just all there fucking around doing this in plain sight, as if they've been doing this their whole lives, as if they've spent too long being corrupt and they don't know another way of life. You know, they don't know another way to be. And unfortunately, Karen Reed is in there. She's in there. She's in the lion's den. She's just in there. And I feel terrible for her. And I feel terrible for her family and her attorneys. You know, they're like feeling this with her. They're feeling how wrong this all is alongside Karen Reed. Thank you for watching.